So I guess I need to get this off my chest because I've been sitting on it for a while, and honestly, it's eating me up. My name's Jake, and I was with my wife Emily for about 10 years before I found out she's been cheating on me. We had a pretty normal life, 2 kids, a little house in the suburbs, her working part-time, me working in finance. Nothing spectacular, but I thought we were solid. Or so I thought. Things started feeling weird a few months ago. Emily, who's always been kind of bitchy when she doesn't get her way, suddenly became super defensive about everything. She'd lash out at me over small stuff, then act like I was crazy when I'd ask what was wrong. She started coming home later, sometimes claiming she was stuck at a meeting, but I'd notice she'd be on her phone constantly, texting or scrolling. I brushed it off for a while. Maybe she was just stressed, maybe she was just having a bad patch. But then I began noticing little things. Her phone had a new passcode she refused to share. Her lingerie drawer suddenly had new, expensive pieces I'd never seen before, and she'd get defensive or dismissive when I asked about it. I even caught her lying about small stuff, and I hate that. I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but after a while the pattern was clear. I started paying more attention. Then came the weirdest part, her behavior around the art class we took together. It's a couples thing, a glass-blowing class at this local studio. She's always been artsy, and I thought it was harmless. But about 3 weeks ago, I noticed her acting strangely after those sessions. She'd come back late, smelling like smoke and something else, something I couldn't quite place. I'd ask her where she'd been, and she'd brush me off, call me paranoid. Then, last week, I decided to check the studio's heat monitoring system. I knew it sounded paranoid, but whatever, I was desperate for answers. Turns out the studio's heat sensors recorded activity way past closing hours, hours when Emily was supposedly home or at work. The logs showed her going in alone, sometimes with someone else. I looked closer and I saw a name, Jason, the instructor. Of course, I'd heard of him. He's supposed to be this talented guy, but I always thought he was just another artsy type. Turns out they'd been meeting during advanced technique sessions. That's what the studio calls their late-night, after-hours stuff. I couldn't believe it at first. I mean, I knew Emily was a bitch sometimes, but cheating, really. And with this guy, the details started falling into place. She'd been sneaking around, lying about where she was. All these little lies, and now I had proof. I felt like my stomach dropped out of my body. I didn't sleep that night. I felt numb, like I'd been punched in the gut. I kept thinking about all the times she'd told me she loved me, all the times she'd accused me of being paranoid or insecure. Turns out, she was out there doing this behind my back, lying, cheating, and basically treating me like I was nothing. That's when I decided I needed to confront her. I didn't want to be a fool anymore. I didn't want to keep pretending everything was okay. I waited for her to come home that evening, trying to figure out what I'd say. My mind was racing. I wanted to catch her in a lie, to see her face. When she realized I knew the truth, when she finally walked in, her shoes loud on the porch, I didn't say a word at first. I just looked at her. She looked tired, a little nervous, which was strange because she's usually bitchy and defensive. I could see it all in her eyes, guilt, panic, maybe even a little anger that I'd found out. I told her I knew. I told her I'd seen the logs, that I knew about Jason, about the late nights and the lies. Her face twisted into something ugly. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're crazy. You're just insecure. You're imagining things. Jason's just a friend. The class is just art." That's when I felt rage bubble up. How could she lie so easily? How could she look me in the face and deny something so obvious? I could feel my blood boiling. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to shove her out of my life. But I just stood there, silent, watching her spin her bullshit. I knew then this wasn't going to be an easy ride. After that confrontation, everything changed. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach again, but this time it was worse because I could see she was still lying, still trying to gaslight her way out of it. Emily's face was calm, almost smug, like she thought she could lie her way through this and I'd drop it. But I wasn't a fool. I knew the truth now, and it was clear she didn't think she'd get caught. I realized I had to do something more than just confront her. I needed proof. I couldn't trust her word anymore. The way she lied about everything, her tone, her fake innocence, it was all too obvious. so I decided to follow her the next day. I wanted to see exactly what she was up to when she disappeared after work. I didn't tell her. I just kept a low profile, parked down the street, watching her slip out of the house with her purse. She looked over her shoulder once or twice, but she kept walking to her car. She went to the studio again. I could tell by the GPS on my phone tracking her. She stayed there for hours just like before. What I saw then, I couldn't believe. She wasn't just meeting Jason for advanced techniques. She was sneaking off with him to a hotel downtown. I watched her go in, her face flushed, and I saw Jason waiting for her outside. They kissed before she went inside, and I swear to God, she looked like she was in her own world. That moment broke something inside me. I had this weird, sick feeling, like I was watching some twisted movie where I was the only one who knew the ending. The next few days, I was a mess. I kept replaying the footage in my head, feeling anger, betrayal, and deep sadness all at once. I didn't know how to process it. I trusted her. We built a life around the idea of honesty and fidelity, and yet here she was, acting like I was crazy for even suspecting anything. I felt stupid, used, and mostly, I felt like I didn't know who she really was. Maybe she was always this person, just hiding it behind her bitchy attitude and sarcasm. I started thinking about what I'd do next. Part of me wanted to confront her again, but I realized it would be pointless unless I had real proof. I also knew I couldn't keep living like this in a constant state of suspicion. So I decided I had to plan my next move carefully. I couldn't just blow up everything without a backup plan. I needed to be smart, calculated. I started gathering all the evidence I could, screenshots, videos, everything I could find from the heat monitoring logs, and I prepared myself for the inevitable confrontation. At the same time, I was trying to keep a semblance of normalcy. I went to work, kept up with the kids, pretended the world was fine. But inside, I was a mess. I was furious, betrayed, and honestly, I felt like I'd been hit with a ton of bricks. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the fact that she'd been lying to my face for months. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I didn't see it coming. But it's like she was so good at hiding it. Her bitchy attitude was her armor, and I'd been too blind or too stupid to see through it. One night, I finally sat her down, prepared to lay everything out. I told her I knew about Jason, about her sneaking off, about the hotel visits. I told her I had the evidence and I wasn't going to let her continue to lie to me. Her reaction was a masterclass in manipulation. She flipped out, called me paranoid, said I was stalking her, and that I was crazy for even thinking she'd do something like this. She accused me of being insecure, of projecting my own issues onto her. Honestly, her words cut deep, and for a moment I wondered if I was overreacting. But then I looked her in the eyes and saw the flicker of guilt, the flicker of someone who knew she'd been caught. That's when I started to realize that this wasn't just about cheating. It was about control, manipulation, and a deep betrayal of everything I thought we had. She kept lying, kept denying, but I had enough now. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I felt my world crumbling, all because I trusted her. And now I had to figure out what to do next, knowing full well that this was only the beginning of what would become a long, painful journey. After that night, I was consumed by everything. The lies, the betrayal, the feeling that I'd been played for a fool. I stayed up all night, going over everything, trying to piece together what had been going on behind my back for months. I felt so stupid for not seeing it sooner. But at the same time, I was boiling with rage. Rage at her, at Jason, at myself for being so blind. I knew I couldn't just let her keep lying and pretending like nothing was wrong. The next morning, I decided I needed to take control of the situation. I couldn't just confront her again without a plan. I started gathering every shred of evidence I had, screenshots of the heat logs, the GPS data, the hotel receipts I managed to secretly get from an app I installed on her phone when she wasn't looking. I wanted everything documented, so I'd have the upper hand when I finally laid everything out. I also contacted a private investigator I knew from work, someone discreet who could confirm what I'd seen. I wanted proof she couldn't deny, something concrete I could show her and the world. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act, still insisting she was innocent. When I confronted her again, she got bitchy fast. "You're crazy," she spat, crossing her arms, voice dripping with contempt. "You're just insecure and jealous. You always think I'm cheating, but I'm not. Jason's just an instructor trying to help me get better at glassblowing. You're overreacting because you're insecure about losing me." Her words were so rehearsed that I wanted to scream. But I kept my cool, knowing that any emotional outburst would only play into her hands. I knew I had to be strategic. I arranged for the private investigator to follow her a few more days, gather more evidence, and see if she'd slip up. I also decided I would record her next confrontation. This whole thing was turning into a game of psychological chess. I was determined to catch her in another lie, to see her real face when she realized she couldn't deny it anymore. I was already feeling the emotional toll, but I needed to stay strong and focused. If I was going to do this right, I had to keep my head clear. Meanwhile, I started emotionally distancing myself. I couldn't just keep pretending everything was normal. I'd begun to feel like I was living with a stranger. Every time she called me paranoid, lied, or snapped at me, I felt the walls closing in. It was like I was slowly losing my patience and my trust, and I didn't know how much more I could take before I snapped myself. I had to remind myself that my priority was protecting myself and figuring out what's best for me and the kids. One day, while she was at the studio again, I used the opportunity to go through her stuff while she was gone. I found her phone in her purse, and I'll be honest, I was terrified of what I might find. I didn't want to invade her privacy, but I was desperate. I unlocked her phone, she's terrible at changing passwords, and I scrolled through her messages. That's when I saw the texts with Jason, flirty, suggestive, and downright trashy. They weren't just talking about art anymore. She was talking about hooking up, about how she needed him, and even about their plans for the next advanced technique session. That was the moment I knew I had enough. She couldn't deny it anymore. I felt a mixture of fury and deep sadness. She was really doing this. I took screenshots of everything, and I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I was ready. I hadn't planned to just accuse her without proof. Now I had it all laid out in front of me. I felt sick, but also strangely relieved. The truth was out. There was no more hiding behind lies. When she got home that evening, I told her I had something to say. I was calm but assertive, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. I laid out everything, her texts, the heat logs, the hotel receipts, the GPS data. Her face turned white, then red, then she started shouting, calling me paranoid again, saying I was stalking her, that I was crazy. But I didn't care anymore. I knew she was cornered, and I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to be played anymore. The look in her eyes was priceless, guilt, panic, and a little fury. It was like she finally realized I'd caught her in her web of lies and she couldn't escape it. The confrontation that night was a mess, but honestly, I don't remember much about what was said because I was so flooded with emotion. She kept denying it, calling me crazy, saying I was just projecting my insecurities. That bitchy attitude of hers was in full force. She tried to turn it around on me, accusing me of not being a good husband, of not paying enough attention, of not satisfying her. I could see her trying to manipulate the situation, but I wasn't having it. I laid everything out again, and this time I let her see the screenshots, the hotel receipts, everything. Her face twisted with rage and disbelief, like she couldn't believe I'd be so bold to do all this. She finally broke down, started crying and yelling at the same time. "You don't understand, Jake. Jason's just a friend. It's none of your business. You're overreacting. I didn't mean for it to get this far. It's just sex, for God's sake." I was stunned. Just sex. Yeah, right. That's what she wanted me to believe. I could see her trying to minimize it, trying to make me doubt what I saw with my own eyes. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut again and again, but this time I knew the truth. And I wasn't going to pretend it was anything else. The emotional impact hit me hard. I felt betrayed to my core. I'd loved her, trusted her, and she had been lying to my face every step of the way. The anger was boiling over, but underneath it all, there was this sinking sadness. I kept asking myself why. Why would she do this? Was I not enough? Did she think she could get away with it? The pain was sharp, and it made me want to break something, scream at the top of my lungs, or just run away from it all. But I stayed there, silent, trying to process what I'd just learned. I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living in this chaos, this constant mind game where she denied everything and I was the fool. I asked her to leave for a few days. She refused, of course, throwing a fit about her rights, about how I was ruining everything. That was classic Emily, her bitchy side coming out full force, trying to guilt me into backing down. But I was done with that. I told her I needed time to think, too. Figure out what was best for me and the kids. I couldn't just pretend everything was fine anymore, not after what I'd seen, not after the lies and the cheating. The next days were a blur of intense emotions. I was oscillating between anger, sadness, and a kind of numbness I'd never felt before. I started imagining what life would be like if I just cut her out completely. Honestly, part of me wanted to do that, pack my bags and walk away, pretend I never knew her. But another part, that stubborn part, still hoped she'd own up to her shit and maybe, just maybe, try to fix this mess. I wasn't naive enough to think it would be easy or quick to forgive her, but I was trying to figure out if I even could forgive her at all. One thing I kept coming back to was the trust, or rather, the total lack of it now. How do you rebuild trust after something like this? Can you? Or do you just accept that the relationship is done? I felt like I was at a crossroads with no clear path ahead. The betrayal was so deep and so raw that it's like I'd lost part of myself. I kept reminding myself that I was doing this for me, for my kids, and for my own sanity. But it didn't make the pain any easier. I'd never felt so alone in my life, even in the middle of a house full of people. In the end, I decided I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I told Emily she needed to leave, at least for now. She threw a massive tantrum, calling me all sorts of names, telling me I was overreacting, that I was the one pushing her away. That only made me more certain that I'd made the right choice. I wasn't going to be a fool anymore, not for her, not for anyone. I needed space, clarity, and most of all, to get out of this toxic situation. So I packed a bag, told her to go stay with her sister, and I told her that until she was willing to be honest, there was no way I was going to keep living under her constant lies. I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. Relief that I finally had some clarity, but anxiety because I knew this was only the beginning of what would be an incredibly hard road ahead. I don't know if I'll ever fully recover from this betrayal, but I do know one thing. I've learned that trust, once broken, is damn hard to repair, and I'll never look at her the same way again. The days that followed were the hardest of my life. The house felt colder without her, and every corner seemed to echo with her bitchy comments and dismissive attitude. I felt like I was walking around in a fog, trying to piece together what to do next. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and honestly, I was just numb most of the time. The betrayal cut so deep that sometimes I wondered if I'd ever be able to trust anyone again, let alone her. During this time, I kept replaying everything. The lies, the cheating, the way she'd look at me like I was crazy when I confronted her. I'd find myself staring at her old photos, memories flooding back. I was furious with her, but I also felt this crushing sadness, like I'd lost who I was in all this chaos. I kept asking myself, was I ever enough? Did she even care about our life, or was I just some placeholder until she found someone better? The thought of that made my stomach turn. I also started thinking about the kids. How do I tell them? How do I explain that their mother is a liar and a cheat? I didn't want them to hate her, but I knew they sensed that something was wrong. I didn't want them growing up thinking betrayal was just part of life. I decided I'd keep things as civil as possible around them, at least until I could figure out what to do long term. It was complicated, but I knew I couldn't let my anger spill over into how I handled them. Meanwhile, I'd gotten the evidence I needed. The private investigator had come through, more texts, more hotel receipts, GPS logs showing her visits to the studio, her sneaking around late at night. I finally sat down and looked at everything in one place and realized how far gone she was. She lied so much, manipulated everyone around her, and I'd been so blind. It infuriated me, but it also made me feel a strange sense of clarity. This was her choice. Her betrayal. I wasn't the one cheating. I was the victim of a woman who had no respect for me or our marriage. One afternoon, I decided I'd had enough of sitting around feeling sorry for myself. I called her, told her I wanted to meet, that I had some things to say. She hesitated, but I was firm. I told her I wanted her to come over so we could talk face to face, no more hiding, no more lies. When she arrived, she looked different, more defensive, like she knew she was cornered. I started by laying out everything, the texts, the hotel receipts, the logs. I let her see the screenshots and the evidence I had collected. Her face changed from defiance to panic, then to anger. She yelled at me, called me insecure, said I was overreacting, that I was ruining everything. But I didn't care anymore. I told her I was done pretending. I told her I wasn't going to stay in a marriage built on lies and betrayal. Her reaction was volatile. She screamed, called me a pathetic loser, told me I was the one who pushed her away with my insecurities. Then she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I sat there for a moment, feeling this strange mixture of relief and heartbreak. I knew I'd done the right thing, but that didn't make the pain any less sharp. I'd lost someone I loved, someone I thought I knew. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling and thought about everything, what I'd lost, what I'd gained, and what the future might hold. Part of me wanted to fight for her, to somehow save what was left of the marriage, but deep down, I knew it was over. Trust was shattered. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. I realized that moving on might be the only way forward, even if that scared me more than I wanted to admit. So I made a decision. I'd focus on my kids and myself for now. I'd get a lawyer, file for divorce, and try to rebuild what was broken. I told myself I'd be okay, eventually. But right now, all I could do was feel everything. The pain, the anger, the betrayal, and know that I'd come out of this stronger, even if it didn't feel like it now. Life was about to change, and I knew I had to accept it no matter how much it hurt. The months that followed were a whirlwind of legal talks, emotional roller coasters, and trying to piece my life back together. I finalized the divorce, and honestly, it was the easiest decision I ever made. Knowing she had been unfaithful and lied so blatantly made it clear I couldn't stay. I moved out of the house into a small apartment and started rebuilding from the ground up. It was tough, no doubt about it. There were moments when I questioned everything, my judgment, my worth, my future. But I also knew I had dodged a bullet. That whole experience changed me in ways I didn't expect. I became more cautious, more suspicious, but also more aware of my own worth. I realized how much I'd been putting up with because I loved her, because I wanted to believe in our marriage. But love isn't enough when it's one-sided and built on lies. I learned that sometimes betrayal isn't about a single mistake. It's about a pattern of deception and disrespect. I think I grew stronger because I finally faced the truth head-on, instead of hiding from it. The kids are doing okay, considering everything. They're still young, and I try to shield them from the worst of it. I talk openly with my therapist about what happened, and I've learned to set boundaries. No more putting myself last, no more ignoring the red flags. I've started dating again, cautiously, because I don't want to shut myself off completely, but I also don't want to get hurt again. Trust is fragile, and I know I have to rebuild it slowly, both with myself and others. Looking back, I realize I was blind for a long time. I thought I knew her, thought I knew us. Turns out I never really did. She was always bitchy, always manipulative in her own way, but I ignored it because I loved her. Now I see her clearly. She was a liar, a cheat, someone who valued her own needs over everything else. And honestly, I don't feel hate or bitterness anymore. Just a strange sense of relief that I finally see her for who she truly was. I want anyone reading this to understand that betrayal cuts deep, but you can survive it. You can come out the other side stronger, even if it hurts like hell right now. If you're in a situation where you suspect something's wrong, trust your gut. Don't ignore the signs. Confront it, gather proof if you need to, and don't be afraid to walk away if that's what you have to do. You deserve honesty, respect, and love, not lies and betrayal. In the end, I've learned that life is too short to waste on people who don't value you. I'm not perfect. I still have scars from this, but I'm healing. My focus now is on my kids, my own happiness, and learning to trust again. slowly, carefully, and on my own terms. Because no matter how painful it's been, I believe there's a better, honest life waiting for me now, and I intend to find it.